Good day, everyone. I'm Janeline Miramonte, and I will be presenting about the importance of using practical strategies in writing each section of your scientific paper. In particular, I will be providing inputs on how you can make your data as a significant source of new knowledge and on how you can formulate and design tables, graphs, and photographs that will effectively communicate the core message of your paper. I hope you will find this discussion meaningful and beneficial to your writing journey. Before we jump right into the things I mentioned, let us first talk about what is scientific writing and why it is important in the development of the different sectors of society. According to Karen Worth, scientific writing is a type of academic writing that is integrated into inquiry-based investigations in order to further the public's understanding of science. It is usually packed with jargon while following a rigorous structure of writing. It is also considered as the glue that holds together scientific research. Since scientific writing is important as it serves as the primary channel for communicating scientific knowledge. Let's take the role that scientific writing played during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic as an example. Scientific writing and publication helped debunk misconceptions and provided a framework to encourage humanity's collective efforts to find a solution. As researchers, it is our responsibility to ensure that our papers will make a tangible impact in the academic community and beyond. The extent to which the overall message of your article is brought to the public largely depends on the quality of writing, as it needs to be packed with intelligent and practical content that even a layman can understand. And the best way to do this is to determine the existing patterns in your data and use effective methods in presenting them. Among the practical tips in writing is to begin with an end in mind. Start your writing process with the concrete data on how you would like it to turn out in the end and what impact you would like to potentially make. As highlighted in our reading material, it is important for us to identify in our results a clearly connected story which leads to one or more take-home messages. Next tip is to use the suitable illustrations to communicate your results. The importance of creative and practical presentation of data is often overlooked in academic writing, but this should not be the case at all. The systematic use of graphs, tables, photographs, and bullet points to present our results must be among our writing priorities. Lastly, make time for personal discernment and evaluation while still making room for collaboration with peers in the research community. Knowledge exchange is a productive method to share ideas, research evidence, and experiences and skills. There are different reasons as to why researchers embark on a writing journey. However, almost, if not all, scientific papers are founded on improving knowledge quantity and quality through the continuous collection and analysis of new data. There are various proven tips in how to present research data categorically and in a way that it can serve as a significant source of new knowledge. In this presentation, you will find three practical tips in presenting your data. First is to design tables and figures that can stand alone. Ensure to include all pertinent information so your readers can understand the data you are presenting without the need to consult the text of the article. Since, as a researchers, it is important for us to establish the power of figures we are adding to our paper to deliver the message of our data without needing to go through with the overall text of the article. Second tip is to make each figure and table that you will be incorporating in your paper around the point you want to get across most strongly. In simple words, make your figures and tables work for you and for the writing objectives that you want to attain. In this part, it is important for you to consider which variable needs to have the most prominent symbol or line, which elements should be emphasized, what scale intervals, maximum and minimum values, and statistical representations will bring more justice and meaning to your data. And last is the importance of legends and table titles. This should explain what are the data being presented and should highlight the key points of your results. We must ensure that every legend and table title we write must concretely explain the figures, tables, or images found in our manuscript. And they should satisfy these two primary requirements, which is make readers understand the significance of the figure or table and help interpret the meaning of the underlying results. Moving forward, I will be sharing techniques on how to design effective tables. Research papers are loaded with data and information that must be organized effectively. Without a clear presentation of the research data, the information will not reach the intended audience, and there is a huge possibility that it will be misunderstood. Using tables to present findings and other data in a research paper can be effective ways to communicate that information to the chosen audience. In this part of the presentation, I will be explaining 5 specific points we should keep in mind as researchers. First point is to ask ourselves whether or not it is necessary that we use tables in our paper. There are findings that are best presented through text or graphs. To help you in deciding, always ask yourself, does it answer a question that the reader is likely to have? Can it illustrate an important point that I discuss in my paper? If either answer is no, don't use one. The second point is connected to the first one, which reiterates the rule in scientific writing that says, do not construct a table unless repetitive data must be presented, since tables are for repetitive data only. There are 2 reasons for this general rule. First, it is simply not good science to regurgitate reams of data just because you have them in your laboratory notebooks. Only samples and breakpoint need be given. Second, the cost of publishing tables can be high compared with that of text, and all of us involved with the generations and publication of scientific literature should worry about the cost. Next point is to avoid exponents in table headings. Raising confusion due to ambiguity is the least thing that we want to cause in writing our paper. Always keep in mind that table headings must simplify the contents of the table because most readers will generally skim the headings first before getting into the data to prepare their minds for what they are about to see, while the text introducing the table will give a brief overview of what data is being presented. The headings break that information down into easier to understand parts. It is also important to give careful thought and footnotes and abbreviations. As you know, a footnote is a reference placed at the bottom of a page or footer. They are referenced in the text in the same way as a citation, and the reference text is followed by a superscript numeral, which corresponds to the numbered footnote at the bottom of the page. We use footnotes to cite sources of facts or quotations and to provide additional information. For abbreviations, because of space limitations in tables, almost all journals encourage abbreviation of certain words in tables that would not be abbreviated in the text. Always remember to capitalize any such abbreviations used as the first word in a column heading. All the points I enumerated are important in presenting our data, but at the end, it will all boil down into the general rule, and that is to follow the guidelines set by our target journal. The style to which you conform when writing your paper will ultimately depend on the journal's guidelines. Pay careful attention to its protocols for citations and references and whether it will allow the points I mentioned. If allowed, be mindful of the disadvantages of both and consider either greatly limiting them or eliminating them altogether. Let's have these examples in designing effective tables. Examine Table 16.6 and 16.7. They are equivalent except that Table 16.6 reads across, whereas Table 16.7 reads down. To use an old fishing expression, Table 16.6 is bass awkward, while Table 16.7 is the preferred format because it allows the reader to grasp the information more easily, and it is more compact and thus less expensive to print. The point about ease for the reader would seem to be obvious. The point about reduced printing costs refers to the fact that all columns must be wide or deep in the across arrangement because of the diversity of elements, whereas some columns, especially those with numbers, can be narrow without runovers in the down arrangement. Table 16.7 appears to be smaller than Table 16.6, although it contains the same information. Words in a column are lined up on the left. Numbers are lined up on the right, or on the decimal point. Table 16.7, for example, illustrates an ineffective table. For the next slide, we will be talking about how to design your graphs that allow the messages of your paper to be heard. But before going into specifics, I thought it would be nice to share the words of Mary Helen Brusco, which you can see on your screen. A good illustration can help the scientist to be heard when speaking, to be read when writing, and it can help in the sharing of the information with other scientists. It can help to convince granting agencies to fund the research. It can help in the teaching of students. It can help to inform the public of the value of the work. Her words provide a deeper explanation of why it is important for us to discuss every part of our scientific paper. Similar to preparing your table, you also need to evaluate whether or not it is necessary to turn your data into graphs. Graphs are not always the best option. Let's remember this always. As reiterated in your reading material, evaluate first if your data should be turned into graphs, because a good rule might be this. If the data show pronounced trends, make it interesting. Picture, use a graph. If the numbers just sit there, just no exciting trend in evidence, a table. And it should be satisfactory, because it attempts to dress up scientific data using impressive-looking graphs, even though it's not needed, are usually doomed to failure. After evaluating if you need a graph, start deciding what type of graph to use that best reflects the message of your data. Different types of data require different kinds of graphs. On one hand, pie charts could be ascertained as perfect for displaying an approximate division of hours of a day and the way they are spent, but on the other hand, a line graph would be more suitable to show a market trend spread over a few months or years. Always keep in mind that choosing the wrong graph might just make it more difficult for your readers make sense of your paper. Next is to choose appropriate sizes and letters and symbols to ensure clarity and readability. In this point, it is important that you adhere to the publication process of your target journal, given the anticipated redaction. Another point is to keep in mind is the simplicity of your graph. Every graph should be as simple as possible and should be understood without the text. Review your designs to remove and adjust distracting data, lines, shadows, and repeated elements. As researchers, it is our responsibility to balance complexity and simplicity in order to create a clear and concise chart while providing enough information to convey the intended message. Too much complexity in chart designs makes it difficult for viewers to discern the main message, causing confusion and frustration, and this includes complex data, chart choice, and chart junk. Here's the example of designing effective graphs. In figure 17.3 is a nice graph. The lettering is large enough to read easily. It is boxed rather than two-sided. Compare with figure 17.2, making it a bit easier to estimate the values on the right-hand side of the graph. The scribe marks point inward rather than outward. For the last part of my presentation, I will be providing a short discussion on how to prepare some effective photographs for your paper. Photographs play an important role in scientific publications, as they provide vital information that clarifies and supplements the written content. There are different factors to consider in preparing the photographs to be included in your paper, and these include the cropping process, color, and line drawings. Cropping is important but not always applicable or necessary. Learn about the publication guidelines of your target journal so you can make essential adjustments. The second and last factor to consider is color. The use of color has become relatively common on some fields and journals. However, it is important to consider if it is truly necessary. As mentioned in the reference provided in the class, we can ask ourselves this question before deciding: would color help me to tell my story? Or would it be merely decorative or even distracting? There are varying guidelines as to how we prepare our photographs. That is why it is important that we first establish the message we want to communicate, and we should know the specific format provided by our target journal. So this is the example of effective photographs for cropping. The first image is the uncropped one, and the other one is the cropped version of a photograph. Another example for cropping is this image. We have this uncropped one in the left side and the cropped version of a photograph on the right side. In this case, publication of both versions may be warranted to both show the tumor in context and display detail. This is the example for color in effective photographs. In the left image, you cannot identify which color is referring to this photograph, but through adding arrows to the referred color in the image on the right, it directs readers' attention to structures of interests. This is the end of my presentation, and I am hoping that you were able to learn a thing or two in terms of the technicalities on how we present the data and other information of our paper. Thank you everyone for listening, and have a good rest of your day.